Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's video/episode, we are going to dive into the matchup between Navy and UAB. So I know that these are obscure matchups, some of them that we do, but I think that's where the value lies. Everybody is wanting to do breakdowns of, the biggest games of the week, and, we do look at those, not all of them, obviously, because I just don't have the time, but I think looking in the obscure areas when it comes to college football is where the most value is. Simply because, as I said 100 times before, there are just too many games for the lines makers to get every single one of them right, and that's kind of where we have the advantage. So when it comes to the academy teams, it's very simple. We are capping the rushing offense versus the rushing defense of their opponent, and then we're just kind of verifying to see if the defense can hold up in the situation. If they're playing an elite offense, the academy teams seem to struggle because it's, a lot of volatility there. So the first thing we're going to look at, as we've been tracking, is early down EPA. Now, as I've said this in the last several videos, teams that are ranking in the top 15 in either offense or defense early down EPA are crushing against the spread numbers. Last week they went 16-7 against the spread, and the week before that they went 10-5. And as the season progresses, we're hoping to capture that type of value going forward. Now, it's not like one of those cherry pick stats. It's a football stat that just makes sense. It's a stat, if you're succeeding on first and second down, you have less third downs, therefore less volatile situations, less high leverage situations, and you're pretty much controlling the game from either side. So it makes sense that if you're very good at that, you're going to be very good at covering the spread number. It just makes sense, and we're going to lean into that until I see that we have a disadvantage somewhere, and I just that could be 4 or 5 weeks from now, it could be next season, I don't know, but we're gonna keep going into it. So first things first, Navy, they're first in early pass EPA. We're not really going to get into that because they pass the ball 18% of the time on first and second down, so it's almost negligible. The big thing is they're rushing the ball 82% of the time on first and second down, and as you can see, their EPA is third overall, giving them the second-rated offense in early EPA. Now, the flip side to that is UAB is just horrendous against the run on early downs. So not only is this going to set up third down and manageable, it's also going to lead to first downs that are gained without a third down. This is a big, big red flag if you're playing Navy. So when we come to the offensive side of the ball, it's always important to take the academy's defenses with a grain of salt, because the defenses are playing less possessions. They're usually fresher the majority of the time. If they're playing those less possessions, they're playing with a lead. So these numbers, they are good, but we have to also take that with some consideration. Now, UAB here is not good. They're just not good on early downs. They're 119th overall. And that's not really kind of where you need to be when you're facing these academy teams. And the thing is, as shown last week, offense is not enough when it comes to beating academy teams. Memphis thought it would be. They got absolutely, just destroyed. Now, we'll get to the box scores for that so we can kind of take some reference points. But we'll continue on, and we're going to look at the advanced stats here. So from the offensive side of the ball, Navy does all the things that you would expect Navy to do well, right? But one thing that really stands out is going to be the explosive side of it. They're 19th in rushing explosiveness. That is not something you usually get when it comes to the academy teams. They usually are very low in explosiveness. I'm looking at you Air Force. I'm looking at you Army. Because it's death of 1,000 cuts, right? It's just 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. That's what they're looking for, right? So they're ranking really well in all the stuff that you would expect them to rank well in. Offensive front seven havoc, rush predicted points per attempt, aka efficiency, offensive line yards, stuff, right? They rank well in all that. UAB, on the other hand, does not. 95th in stuff rate, 128th in defensive line yards, 96th in front seven havoc, 122nd in rush efficiency, and they're okay, 68th in defensive rush explosiveness. But from the efficiency metrics, they're just not good. And that is just a gigantic concern, if you're asking me. Now, when we look on the defensive side of the ball for Navy, you could see that UAB is not an explosive offensive team. Unlike Memphis, who they played last week, this is more of a methodical offense. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good. They're just not explosive. And so the Navy defense is pretty average, as you can see. Not a ton of, there's no blue, no green. A little bit of red, which is concerning. They're not great against the rush here. UAB is 62nd in rush, not super explosive. So you have a lot of weakness on weakness. The one thing is, though, they are good against the pass. They're 30th in predicted points per attempt and 31st in allowing explosive plays on defense. I don't see UAB really giving it, giving them a run here on either side of the ball, and that makes me a little concerned because the line is very low. But let's take a look here at what we've seen. Navy, obviously last week, played Memphis, arguably their biggest game of the year. They had a week to prepare for it. And we saw Memphis coming off, that adrenaline dump against Florida State, where they won. They didn't play particularly well, but they did win, which is important for their playoff hopes. Now, I do not foresee Memphis making the playoffs. I said that at the very beginning of the year, even though I did predict they would lose to Florida State. That's neither here nor there. The prediction is still they will not make the playoffs, as it has been this whole year. Now, when we look at the game log, because we're going to look at the rushing, right? That's our most important thing here. We look at the game log, just absolute domination, 9.26 yards per attempt, just a brutal game. And they pretty much dominated from start to finish. Memphis did make a little comeback, but nothing that really, you're sitting there like, oh, they're getting ready to run over this game. They could not stop them from an offensive standpoint. So, but and also the passing. I mean, they had 205 yards passing. Like, that's insane. So the Memphis defense went from facing a team like Florida State, who couldn't move the ball to save their life, to a Navy team that could not be stopped. Now, they forced Seth Hennigan to throw the ball 57 times. If you are finding yourself attempting 57 passes in a game, you are more than likely losing. You are more than likely not going to win. It is not a good day for you and your team. And that's obvious. 6.8 yards per attempt. These counting stats are high, and that's great and all that. But again, 6.8 yards per attempt, not what you expect from Seth Hennigan. He is very good. But that just shows you that you're playing from way behind. Now, when we look at UAB, they are coming off of a tough-fought game against Arkansas. They played really well. They had a lead in that game, so you feel like they probably would have been up for it. They do have a week to prepare here for Navy. So a week to essentially lick your wounds of what could have been. But I'm personally not seeing the value in them here. A loss to ULM is unexcusable. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot lose that game. I don't care if it was played on the moon. It does not matter. And so it gives me a lot of concern when it comes to playing Navy team, who I do think there is the possible for a letdown here, as there always is when you come off a big win. But, they have Air Force next week, which is obviously an important game for the Commander-in-Chief Cup. but I don't foresee them overlooking UAB here. It is their first road game, so that will be something that is, something to consider. But I just don't foresee them overlooking this game, and I just think, even though the line is low, and that is, you're like, it makes you pause because you're like, oh, the line should be like 5 or 6 probably. But I'm not going to sit here and act like, I'm going to be scared off the line because I don't feel like it's where it's supposed to be, So we will look at the line real quick so you can see, if it's moved at all. It was 3.5, I believe, earlier in the week. It's still 3.5. I think like it's a play that I'm going to have most definitely minus 3.5. I'm not going to be parlaying anything this weekend, but it will be just straight bets, and that's one that I definitely have earmarked. It fits the trends. The strength on weakness matches up, especially from an academy team, and I think this team is disciplined enough to not have a letdown in this spot. Other than that, guys, that's going to be it for today's video episode. I'm looking at doing a couple more for this week as we're approaching Saturday. I am considering doing like a live stream Saturday morning, depending on what my schedule looks like. And I know I don't have a ton of followers or anything like that, but that is something. If that is something you want to hop in, you can recommend games for me to go over. I can go ahead and load them up, and then we can kind of go from there. But yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content or if you want to see more. If you have any suggestions, you can comment on the video games you want to see. It is Wednesday, so I still have enough time in the week. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter or email me at themintnermethod@gmail.com. It's spelled exactly as the channel is named. You're more than welcome to do that. Other than that, I appreciate everybody watching and listening, and if you have anything else, just reach out. All right, well, I'm gonna catch you on the next one, which will more than likely be I'm looking at, I have numerous here, but we'll more than likely get into some like Power 5 versus Power 5 teams. I know that's usually what people are wanting to see. I got several marked here on my notes, and we'll probably get into those. All right. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.